All right. Good afternoon, BuiltWorlds gang. Before we jump into it, can we give a little round of applause for the BuiltWorlds team for putting this event on? These events are pretty cool. It's great to network with everybody, but also you got to have people willing to put the event together. So appreciate you guys. My name is Brandon Ramsey. I'm the Director of Customer Experience at Trunk Tools. We've got a pretty fun little panel we're going to run for you guys around our engagement with Suffolk. You're going to get to hear from everybody. But before we dive in, can we just go down the line real quick? Start with introductions with you, Sarah. We'll work our way to Joseph.
Cool. Welcome, everybody. I'm excited to be here. I think this is a great event, turning from 30 people to 150 people. That's even real growth for venture capital companies like us. It's very hot in here, so don't worry. Like we're all in the same boat. I'm Sarah. I'm a carpenter turned construction tech CEO and founded Trunk Tools. And I'm very excited to be here, not just with Suffolk, but with real people from the field, which is something we really like to do because it's ultimately construction tech is for the field and not just for the white collar people of construction. And so we're really excited and proud to have not just you here, Kelsey, but also Joseph.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Joseph. I graduated in mechanical engineering from WashU, and now I'm a project engineer working for Suffolk on the Delano Hotel in Miami Beach.
And I'm Kelsey Gager. I'm also a Suffolk. I'm our VP of Operational Excellence. Just for some context, Suffolk is a general contractor based in Boston. We do about $6 billion a year in work across a variety of different sectors. With our Operational Excellence group, I oversee and sort of are responsible for ensuring that our projects are executed consistently across our 150 projects that we run at any given point in time.
Awesome. And Sarah, just very quickly, can you speak to what Trunk Tools is, the value props, kind of what we're doing in the industry today?
I'll keep it short, I promise. I brought some slides with me. I'm going to move out here. What is Trunk Tools? I like to start with this question for the people who have seen me do this a million times. Please don't spoil it for anybody else. This is actually a Suffolk construction site in New York. It costs about $500 million to build this. How many pages of documents does Suffolk have on their Procore on this job? Just throw out some numbers. Pages. 1 million. Okay, what else?
2 million.
2 million. It's actually higher than we usually hear. So we didn't know either. This was one of the first jobs we ever did with Suffolk. We got a total of, 3.6 million pages of documentation on a single job. And for everybody who has worked in the field, you guys know that missing one single word or one line in 3.6 million pages can cost you millions of dollars. That's insanity. That's what we are trying to solve. The way we do this, the click is not working with me. The way we do this is, we always have tech issues here. It's tech companies. There you go. So we take this stack of super unstructured data, schedules, drawings, submittals, and so on, and we built a multimodal RAG system. We heard this from the NVIDIA guy this morning to turn unstructured data into structured data sets. And we're not just doing this on one page, but we're doing this on every single file on your whole job. So we're training an AI specifically for your job. The way this works in practice is we go into all these data silos, all these systems of records, Autodesk, Procore, you name it, take every single file and train one massive brain. That's why we call it the brain behind construction. This brain then goes in and powers different AI-based agents, also like AI assistants. So exactly what you heard this morning with NVIDIA, this is fully out of the box. You don't have to configure anything. You can just like start using it. We can get online within the same day. What agents do we have? What agents are we building? And what's all of these fancy buzzwords? We went on a job site. I actually love this study. We did this study and we measured how GCs are spending time. For the people who like to read data, 8% to spend on field issues. Should be 90 plus, right? So there's lots of workflows that GCs and also subcontractors have to do that have absolutely nothing to do with actually being value adding to the job. So what we did is we went ahead and started building an agent for each of these time buckets. Submittals, RFIs, Q&A, traditional Copilot, procurement, meeting prep, and so on. And currently we're augmenting about 65% of the workflows that are happening on every single job. So that's a little bit about us. We have large enterprise deals. The reason why we're here with Suffolk is because as of yesterday, we are enterprise-wide rolled out on every single one of your employees with one of our agents. Joseph here is actually using 2 right now, I think, to my knowledge. And yeah, that's it. That's a little bit about us. And I'm excited to hear about the actual people.
And on that note, before we get to Suffolk, to Kelsey, I want you to follow up to the question I'm going to ask her in a second. But Sarah, can you focus on, AI? I mean, this event goes from 30 to 150 people because we're very early days, right? I mean, 150 people is growing, but we're still growing. We're early days and kind of in the infancy of AI. Can you speak a little bit to the role that AI is playing in the industry and the value it's adding kind of day in, day out?
I think it's interesting to see that AI is not just changing software, it's actually changing the services itself, right? AI finally is something that is a technology that that people always say like, oh, in construction, we don't like to adopt technology. I actually think our technology is not adoptable. Like it's so bad. We're working with UIs from the 90s and we are surprised why the choosers of this world don't want to use software. That's not what's happening with AI. AI is easy to adopt, it's easy to understand, and it's augmenting people in a way that has never seen before. And the beauty is it's automating the knowledge work of this, which is me, again, I grew up as a carpenter. I'm actually even more excited than because it reinforces the trades, right? Like that's what's not going to be automated. But I think it's in 5, maybe even 3 years from now, a construction site from a white collar perspective, it's going to look very, very different than today.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kelsey, can you speak a little bit to kind of, you're driving the
Yeah.
AI innovation within your organization. Can you speak to kind of what prompted that? How did this start to kind of crop up? And then what was the sense of urgency on getting ahead of this?
Well, to Sarah's point, I think one of the things we're really excited about with the AI use cases is just that there are so many use cases. It's one solution, it's one tool, but there's in one company that we're working with right now, but there's so many different use cases that can apply to. So construction, I think one of the challenges we've had is we've been plagued with so many different sort of point solutions in the space. And Sarah mentioned this, there was sort of the BIM evolution, the digital evolution, the internet, all of these things. And it got the construction industry really excited, field users really excited. My background is also in the field. I was on the operations side when I first started at Suffolk. And I think one of the things I was really excited about was, using these different tools to actually add efficiency to my day-to-day. And I think one of the challenges was that it doesn't actually get down to anything. The current solutions that we're seeing in the space don't actually add a lot of value beyond sort of micro efficiencies or those point solutions that I mentioned. So we're living in a world of sort of point solutions. One of the things I'm really excited about, in particular with trunk tools that we've done, which is we've rolled this out to the entire enterprise, is that we've scaled quickly. And I think in the era of data and predictive analytics, the only way to win is to have solutions that are scaled out on every single job site. And we didn't just dabble on one single site with the solution, right? We went out and we said, we're going to put this out on every single job site. We're going to have a use case that actually adds value, and we're going to give it to every single team, every single project. And we're not just going to have it, on one single site where it's getting dabbled with, which I think again is another challenge that we see across our sites, is that they get exposure to a solution, it sits on one job site, and then it doesn't go anywhere. And so when you're not scaled up, your teams don't, see the value, and really the organization doesn't see the business value from that tool.
Yeah. As a CX person, not being able to roll out the product the way you want to is the nightmare, right? And for anybody out there that is CX people, you know what I'm talking about. So it keeps you up at night. And I think, when it comes to how you roll this out succinctly, it's forming that partnership. And you guys have been a partner to Trunk Tools in helping this, and we've worked with you guys to roll this out quickly. Sarah, can you talk a little bit about the impact that having that partnership at that kind of first step level and what that means?
I mean, full transparency, we were part of Suffolk's Boost program in 2023, I think. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So about, a year and a half ago. And what is fascinating, so we have been part of many accelerators in construction. And what I actually really appreciate about the Suffolk one was it made us enterprise ready at a point where we weren't. And most startups wouldn't think about that, right? So it was not just like, ooh, you get the fancy Suffolk brand and everybody talks about you. No, it was really like, we talked to their CISO for like hours and be like, how are we going to ever get through security here, right? We talked to their legal team for weeks, right? And it was like, really, okay, like what does a large enterprise need from a security perspective, from a data perspective, from a legal perspective, to be able to roll out an AI company? And we talked about this in 2023, right? So we had enough leeway because of Boost and because of the close partnership that followed after that to build a tool and a software into an enterprise ready product, which as most of you know, that's a real struggle for startups, right? Because I have constrained resources and I build for the mid-market and then I'm trying to go up. And we were lucky enough because of Boost and the partnership to go enterprise first almost, which is kind of nuts. And our investors, some of them are in the room, they're like, oh, like shying away from that. But we decided that strategy was really the right one, and it would have never worked without a close partner like Suffolk.
Yeah, and she mentioned Boost, and Sarah, this is, I think programs like this is what elevate the industry and allow us to take on new technologies head on. Can you talk a little bit about the decision-making factors, what made Trunk Tools stand out, but really what are those success criteria at the end of the day of what you're looking for those programs and specifically
Yeah.
for Trunk Tools?
So whenever we're looking for a solution, we always start with the problem. We want to be problem back. And so we had a certain problem we wanted to solve, which again, this intro use case was to leverage AI to search across all of our SOPs, which just for the context, we have thousands of documents. Suffolk takes a lot of pride in, having a lot of standards. We write down everything that we do. And because we have that like level of detail, it can make it a challenge for teams to actually search through sort of all of the documentation. So getting back to the pilot that we ran, we looked at 3 different solutions and we tested them all head to head. And I won't name what the other 2 were, but Trunk Tools came out on top. And the number one thing we looked at was accuracy. When we go out to the job sites, you really get one shot. If you roll out something and the first impression is not good, the answers aren't right, they're not going to come back to you again. And that's what we see time and time again. And so accuracy was key. And we went with the solution that with, the speed and the efficiency that we needed, but also going back to that accurate answers that we received back when we were inputting questions, that was the number one quality we looked for.
And I think Joseph, this is where we can start to bring you into this conversation. You're the person, they're rolling it out. There's a vision, there's a desire for this tool. We're hearing it more and more. How is picking that tool up in your day-to-day kind of, how's that worked? Like how was learning this new technology that touches so many of your other tech stack?
Yeah, definitely. So I had the opportunity to be one of the pilot projects to use this tool, and right away it was super applicable to my daily workflows. You just open up a separate window and ask like any question you can. And the more questions you ask and the more comfortable you get with the tool, the more you're going to push it. Also having like the trunk text, which is like you can just text on your phone, is super helpful when you're out in the field. You don't have to go back into the office, come back out in the field, lose your train of thought. And like anybody from any era in construction can pick up a tool like this. And, kind of what Kelsey said, if they see that it is accurate, they're going to be excited to use the tool. So,
yeah. And I'm sure there are a lot of people curious as to how this actually gets used in the field. And there are not many opportunities where people get to hear from someone in the field using it day in and day out. What are some relevant examples that you've noticed where it's helping? What are those use cases specifically?
yeah, definitely. So, I mean, one of them, again, new to the field. So, we noticed there's like discrepancy in drawings. I need help writing an RFI for missing toilet accessories. If I'm interested to know like which panels are associated with the emergency generator room, that's a quick question I could put in Trunk Tools and get an answer. Another one, there was a crane on site the other day, and I'm interested in crane safety requirements. That's something that's pulling from the Suffolk SOPs. It's giving us, a checklist, any certifications that we need. And even when you're out in the field and you need like a quick dimension of a ceiling height, you can ask Trunk Tools. It's going to pull up that drawing, attach it, and give you that dimension.
And I'd love to know just a little bit more around like what the process predating that would be. You've got 4 or 5 solutions. You're trying to navigate, find the right documents, and it takes some time, right? Has this, has it helped in terms of eliminating all the additional steps, 15, 20 minutes? What does that look like in terms of the day-to-day savings for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely saving people time. Some like I kind of said, they're going to lose their train of thought. If they're on the field, it's hard to go back into the office. And then for someone like me, it's definitely helping me learn the industry faster. Like I'm young, I'm really passionate about using technology, using AI to help me, speed processes and learn the industry. So that's been super helpful.
I actually think that's a great point. We like to say internally, we're not doing AI, we're doing IA. And what we mean with that is like intelligence augmentation. We are augmenting people like Joseph with an additional, not just like speed, but also like knowledge, right? Like all of a sudden, Joseph, because of the tool in his hand, is always the smartest person in the room. like regardless which subcontractor comes and wants to fight with him, right? It's like, "Dude, this is not part of my contract. Type it in, turn it around, conversation done, right? Somebody's has seen this, yeah. And so we need to, as an industry, understand that the goal is augmenting humans, augmenting workflows, and not just pretending that we can automate everything and have just, like don't need humans anymore. Our number one problem is labor shortage. So we don't have enough, humans. And the number two is knowledge transfer. All of these humans, like not all of the humans, but like, what is it, 20% retire in the next 4 years? How are you going to do that? The people that retire in your corporations carry most of your IP, most of your knowledge. So if you don't get on the train where you can somehow easily transfer that knowledge from that generation to Josephs of this world, you're going to lose half of your IP in the next 4 years.
Yeah, Kelsey, that has to be a corporate mandate. There is this like unspoken fear, right, of all this experience leaving the industry,
call it the
and
brain drain.
yeah, that's exactly right. So, can you talk a little bit about how urgent this is to get this right and make sure that it's delivered out?
I mean, Sarah hit right on it. I think one of the challenges that my team has faced is like in trying to document all of our standards and trying to capture all of that data is that it's so much information, it's impossible to search. And it's really hard to call up that information in time of need. And so you'll hear like in the industry, people say, what's your strategy with lessons learned? Are you collecting insights from past projects and incorporating them and creating a feedback loop to the beginning of the project lifecycle, taking things from a project that's completed and circulating it back to the beginning of that project lifecycle? And the reality is the way that superintendents have done it for the since we've had Excel, I don't know, 20 years, they put it in an Excel sheet, right? And then they're like, oh, I'm really going to use this the next time I do drywall. The reality is if you don't actually build that into their workflows and bring that information up in time of need, it's never going to get utilized properly. And so I think that's one of the big challenges. Sarah said, 20% next 5 years, it's 40% in the next 10 years of the industry is going to be leaving. And so if we don't equip people with better tools and attract talent with those tools, right? People don't want to join an industry that's antiquated and it doesn't have like sexy, fun technology tools to use. And so I think those are some of the big challenges we're going to be facing.
I love the use of sexy, fun technology tools. Joseph, could you, in this industry, every role, when you get hired, you kind of look for a mentor, somebody to guide you. And as they're talking about it, that the opportunity is dwindling a little bit. How has Trunk Tools helped fill in the gap to provide you with that experience, knowledge, and what the best practices are according to what Suffolk as a company has learned?
Yeah, it just helps me get up to speed and feel like a little bit more confident with, Suffolk SOPs and just overall knowledge of the project itself. At the end of the day, when you're out there, to feel like you belong, like you have to know what is going on site at all times, even if it's not, your scope of work. Right. So this is something that can connect everyone on the team and give everyone access to the same, breadth of knowledge for the project and bring someone like me up to speed, much quicker. And obviously I'm leveraging the tool as much as I can. So
yeah, absolutely. And Sarah, I'd love to get your take on, this, we've identified what we're building for. Now we kind of constantly evolve it and grow it and manage it. How do we improve upon this? Right. We've identified the weaknesses in the market. What are the things you've heard agents talked a lot about this past couple of days? Can you talk a little bit about the role that agents are playing in helping that?
I like it. If I get $1 every time I hear or say agents, I wouldn't have to do this job. The way I showed this a little bit, the way we think about agents is really what are the low-hanging fruit of super repetitive processes that we can quickly fully automate. I think a really interesting one that, can I talk about the notice agent or is this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So a really interesting one that actually Suffolk is co-developing with us is around notices, right? So contracts have notice periods in there that we actually are scraping with an agent. And then we are looking at all the other data sets, meeting minutes, like daily logs, whatever else. And the agent is by itself monitoring, is there anything that would trigger a notice? And if it does so, let's create a notice and show it to the PM or to Joseph and be like, Joseph, there was a weather delay. You are supposed to alert your owner in 48 hours. I've written this notice for you. Do you want to send it to stay compliant? It's as simple as that. Who would say no? Okay, so like that's the real question. Like nobody in the job is like, I don't want to be compliant. I don't want to do my job, right? So everybody's going to say yes, and actually like that avoids, I don't know, 80% of your lawsuits or something like that, right? It's these like very simple low-hanging fruits from a technology perspective that are hugely impactful to stay compliant, to do your job, to please your owner, and to actually be a sophisticated company.
And you know, Kelsey, I've been out of that booth for the past 2 days. I've talked to a number of different people kind of in your space that are looking at how to bring something like this on and evaluate the needs that they have. And there is a hesitancy. They don't know where to start. They don't know who to trust. They don't know like how to start this whole process. Can you speak just a little bit around the kind of first practical steps that somebody can start to take to pursue a solution like this for their business?
Yeah, I think you hit on the right word. It's trust. I think AI has a rep right now in the industry of being black box and hype. And it's not real. It's not actually, creating value for me. And so I think one of our strategies is like, let's define one single use case. Let's get it out to everybody. And let's build that trust so that then they can be inspired to identify more use cases. And I'll just give you an example, right? Like we rolled this out yesterday morning. Yesterday, I was down at a project on our Gulf Coast in Florida. One of our risk management team members was down there, and she pulled me aside. She's like, I clicked on that trunk tools link this morning, and it worked really well. I got the answers I needed to my questions. And she says, this is a true story. She said, Chrissy, she said to me, I have a ton of ideas of how I'm going to use this in the risk management capacity moving forward. And so again, and the risk team's been very hesitant to, consider use cases, but you really have to gain that trust and get in with them and get them excited. And then they start to see there's other opportunities for me to apply this to my day-to-day, and they get inspired, and then they come to you with the problems. And that's best case, is when they're coming to you, because you don't just want to be pushing solutions without a clear problem that you're solving.
Yeah, from our side, actually, so I think we're doing this on Monday or something. We're posting, we're trying to help you buy AI, not just us, but I've been 20 years in the industry. I actually care, right? So we are being evaluated by almost everyone from the ENR 50, ENR 100 right now, right? And they send us AI questionnaires that have nothing to do with AI. They send us security questionnaires that have nothing to do with AI. We get red lines that have nothing to do with AI, right? So there's so much so it's such a gap of knowledge in the industry right now of even how do you evaluate AI vendors and how do you buy AI sophisticatedly. So we'll publicly making this available next week. We have developed an AI questionnaire for all of you that your companies can use to actively send to companies like us and be like, hey, here's what you should ask if you want to sophisticatedly and ethnically buy AI, and how are you there is a lot of black mirror out there, and there's a lot of BS out there, to be honest, of some easy ChatGPT wrapper that's maybe not where you want to start. The reason why we are so much more accurate than some of our competition is because we have been doing this for a really long time, which means we have a massive data set. Our agents have learned by being used. And so there's an exponential curve of accuracy that happens if you actually have been doing this for a while, right? So I know you can probably get something on a Figma for 10% of the price. And I tell you, your problem is not the price, your problem is the change management. So just be smart when you evaluate companies and actually go for something that is proven.
I mean, removing that barrier to entry is so important, and that questionnaire, it's helping people get to the answers that they know that they need. And one of those questions they have is, how do I quantify the value of this tool, right? What's the ROI of something like this? Sarah, how do you approach that conversation with customers around what ROI for trunk tools looks like, and what are those success criteria looking like?
It was complicated in the beginning, full transparency, right? We weren't sure either, right? And so we worked with some of our large customers early on and be like, how do you quantify that? And by now, actually, we developed this with a few of our enterprise customers where in the trunk text, which is mostly what Joseph is using, this Q&A agent or Copilot, whatever you want to call it, we call it trunk text. So you ask a question, you get an answer, you get the source document. People really see the ROI twofold. One is saving time to find an answer. And then the second one is reduction of rework. The amount of data discrepancies that we find in these answers, right? The amount of times that Joseph has to answer an MEP question because the sub is showing up, and otherwise the whole construction site gets stopped and he has no idea about him. I assume you have no idea. Whatever, you're not an expert around MEP. And the amount of times that you can really avoid rework is insane. So we actually did a study on that. 65% of rework cost is because of data discrepancies. That's if you assume 10% rework, that's 6.5% of your construction cost. So when the GCs run something on a 3% margin, I promise you, if you would use this 100%, you could triple your margins just by avoiding data discrepancies. That's the insanity we're dealing with. So what's the real ROI? Yes, Joseph is saving some times. Joseph is asking more questions, but most importantly, Joseph is asking questions that show data discrepancies that reduce rework by 65%.
And to that end, Kelsey, I want to kind of flip it over to
Yeah.
you. You know, it's quantifying ROI through a pilot into expansion. What does that look like from your side of the house? How are you guys measuring success? This is working, this is not working. And what are those ROI factors that you're considering?
Yeah, so similarly, I mean, our metrics evolve over time based on the maturity of the solution, but to start, it's utilization. So we just look, are people actually using it? Specifically for the SOP search, for example, the kind of the next evolution of metrics we'd be looking at would be around time savings. So are people spending less time on individual pages? And so we have actually started measuring that as well. And then over time, I think what we'd be looking to measure is, are the adoption of our SOPs improving? And so we have a monthly checkpoint with every project team where they're checked in to ensure that they're following our SOPs and our standards. And so ideally, we'd see those scores start to go over time. So you'd see that improvement in actual performance, that baseline improvement. So I think what's important is that you actually benchmark those metrics before you actually roll out the solution so you can show the value to your important stakeholders of the organization.
And then I think another one that was interesting about the SOP one with you guys is actually the flywheel of reinforcement learning here, right? So like we have done this SOP agent with multiple companies. I've never seen as sophisticated SOPs as with Suffolk. So it's like, that they were already like on point and, massive company. And still, even in the pilot phase, we had users ask questions that were not answered by the SOPs, right? And so like our tool would come back and tell the user, currently there's no data around that, so please reach out to the ops department. But then also like our agent would send an email to the ops department and be like, there's a gap in your SOPs, you should probably fix that, right? So that creates a flywheel of reinforcement learning in the traditional sense.
Right, and it's hard to even quantify that, right? But to the point earlier around like we've tried to kind of slim down our SOPs in a lot of ways to make them easier to search and navigate. Now we don't have to do that. Now they're rich, now they're robust, now they have every single thing you could ever want in them. And you can find them with the search agent. You don't have to go ripping through different pages.
I think as we start to get more usability, there's this feedback loop that starts to build. We've already kind of touched on it a little bit, right? The SOPs, the gaps there's a feedback loop that's forming, but also you're hearing from people like Joseph where it's like, hey, we don't have this level of support in our documentation, or we need X, Y, and Z additional detail. We can work better with our design team. How do you manage a feedback loop like that? And then how has it been working with the Trunk Tools team to start to kind of see that functionality embedded into the tool?
Yeah, I mentioned the exhaustion around point solutions. Like teams really are exhausted. They don't want just an array of more solutions coming at them again, especially if they're not problem backed. And I think there's a lot of price sensitivity on the client side as well. Like our owners don't just want to continue to see increases in prices and no reduction in GCs, no added productivity like to the baseline. It's not improving the overall model for anyone. And so going back to that sort of trying to make the experience as cohesive as possible, one of the things that's really important for us as we're thinking about our tech stack is how do we bring solutions in, again, when we scale them to everyone, that feel like they are part of that overall environment and that ecosystem, and they're connected to other tools within that same environment. And so, for example, we worked with you guys on SSO integration, which might seem simple, but if you're a superintendent trying to get into an application, you don't want to have another login. If you're Microsoft Shop, which we use Teams for everything for collaboration, you want your search agent to appear as another Microsoft Teams application in a channel there that you can actually interact with. And so we worked really hard to make sure that all those integrations were in place. The integration work that we did with Procore, for example, we're a Procore user as well. So stitching all of those pieces together so that as an end user in the field, it doesn't feel like it's 1,000 different applications. It feels like you're having a cohesive experience that's actually been designed with you in mind.
And Joseph, to that point, I think a large part of the success in driving adoption of tools like this and providing maximum value from day one, how important to you was the consistency of those integrations and the way that the tech stack was lined up to support it, knowing you're going to get the answers you're looking for?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's super important. As we said, like we judge Trunk Tools on accuracy, and like seeing that out there on the field is like building a lot of trust. And working with Trunk Tools, like when we have, giving you additional things to add or look into. You guys have been, quick to make adjustments to the tool where, we deem necessary, out there on the field. And every project is different. So it's super important to take that into account.
Yeah, and it's the best. That's the great point, right? Like we almost like an octopus, right? Like and like we it doesn't matter to us where the data comes from. Like we need to stay super flexible and open. And we are live on hundreds of construction sites. We have never seen one job where we only pull data from one source. Like this universe of like the winner takes it all and all the data is one platform. I haven't seen it. If anybody has a job like that, let me know. That would be cool. It's the same idea like BIM, right? Like all the data is in one BIM model. Like it's not true either, right? And so we built it from day one in a very like in an architecture that we can like plug in and out, not just AI models, but also like data sources. And it is exactly to Joseph's point, you had to use Procore, and then there's a data dump on the side with SharePoint, and then there's HAMAttack or whatever it is, right? And so like you have several systems of records on every job, and it's on companies like us to make it digestible and easy for people like Joseph so they can actually like do their job. Our internal theme is let builders build. I want to get back to that where companies like us, like the Silicon Valleys of this world, actually like stay in their basement and do the job so that these people out there can actually build.
And Kelsey, I think it's important that the people here too, that the confidence maybe this instills around picking up new solutions, knowing that that data is going to funnel to a trusted place where they can easily access it. How do you evaluate tools now, knowing that you've got a tool like Trunk Tools that is able to take in this data and make it easily translatable to the field?
I think now we're just excited about what are the next use cases, right? The what's next. I think, look, I think the opportunities are endless. I think the use cases are there. I think the challenge is like prioritizing them and making them, big bets for your organization so that it's strategic and you're actually moving the needle for your teams and you're not just solving one-off solutions on a job-by-job basis. I think that's where you're going to see real change.
Yeah. And to that point, I'd love to know how you kind of start to prioritize that, right? The feedback's coming. It's going to start coming in waves. You're getting it from the field, you get it from the corporate entity, you get it from multiple different angles. How are you at this stage, at this point in the kind of process, evaluating what we focus on building first, or is it just ingesting and trying to balance it out?
Look, I think right now we're taking a lot of feedback from the field. I think that's our best source for understanding their day-to-day pain points is being in that space. I think Sarah said it really well at the beginning. Our industry has been obsessively trying to mitigate, manage, transfer risk since, for the last 50 years or so. And what that's done is created a ton of fragmentation, disparate information, places where information is stored, different silos. And I think so anything we can be doing to help break down those barriers, share information more freely, and be able to, source and find information for end users, I think is where we're going to be focusing at specific use cases. More to come on that.
Yeah, of course. I remember distinctly opening up ChatGPT for the first time and typing in the stupid prompt that I think all of us did, which is write me a rap about my dog or so whatever it was, right? And then all of a sudden your mind starts to click in place, like the world of possibilities that models like this can have and what it unlocks for just how you go about your day. And then an example I gave is, I was working through a spreadsheet, had a model open up, the voice model in the background. I would start talking out loud, and that inspired how we kind of train the field users, right? Is just say the thing that's in your head into the system and it will surface that. How does this evolve over the next 5 to 10 years? It's kind of hard to fathom the jumps that we're making, but how are you looking at it? And I'd love to go all the way down. How are you looking at the kind of 5 to 10 year horizon of what technology like this is going to do to the market or to the industry?
I'm hopeful that it really evolves the role of our project managers. I think right now they have a ton of administrative burden. If you look at what they're spending their day-to-day on, I mean, we showed some of it, but I think a lot of it is just paperwork. Like, and you feel it like your burden, you're trying to get one thing done and you have to fill out 8 forms to get there. And then you add on specific clients with specific needs. And then you're doing that twice and duplicating it over and over. I think, back a while, hundreds of years ago, we had a site manager. You didn't have project managers and superintendents and project admins and all of these different roles that are stacked up really, again, to just not even mitigate risk, to transfer risk between different parties, right? And so I think that's the challenge we're trying to overcome. So I think eventually we'll see an evolution of the different types of roles on the job site, and we'll get people more focused on actually building the building, which is what people are in the industry to do. That's what they love to do.
Yeah. I mean, I've not thought too in depth about the future of AI. I mean, the possibilities are truly endless. Like we've seen AI change so much in just a year, 2 years. So I'm really excited for all the possibilities, and I do think like it'll help just streamline workflows, make projects more efficient, which I think is a big priority for every construction company. You know, being that efficiency, schedule-driven project that we all dream of being. And yeah, I mean, just giving everyone more opportunity to perform.
Every engineer I've ever met dreams the dream of sitting in a job site trailer and never going out to the field. That's why most people get into it, right? And I think it's with that sentiment that I think, Sarah, that like the kind of the approach of letting builders build is really what resonates. 5, 10 years, you've got to have some ideas.
I hate this question. So thank you, Brandon. I can give you an idea of how the next 2 years are going to look like, but the speed of evolution in AI is beyond even me, and I'm on the forefront of it. Like it is insane. Like full transparent for anybody who thinks it's a hype. I'm always saying it's hyped, but it's not a hype. Like the economic change that is about to happen or is already happening, right? The impact that this has on pretty much or gonna have on every single job is really intense, and the speed of development is unheard of. I like to say that 1 year in AI is like 5 years in software, right? So like if you, and just for everybody here, right? If you miss the boat on what's happening right now, it's a fundamental risk to your business and to your business practices. The competition is doing it. The competition is catching up, and it's people like Joseph who are going to be augmented with right now several, but in like a year, probably like 10, 20 different agents, and then an agent that is managing the agents for him, right? And Joseph is all of a sudden going to be able to do the job, not just of somebody with 30 years experience, but 30,000 years of experience. And he's not going to be just doing the job 8 or 10 hours a day. He's going to be doing the job 400 hours a day because he has so many agents working for him. And so it's multi-dimensional impact of AI is really something that keeps me up at night, honestly, because I'm like, what's about my job? Like I can automate my job. So it's like, it's quite funny. Like, and I'm okay with that. I go back being a carpenter.
Yeah, I think same. And Joseph, you're going to come up as the first generation of engineers to have AI almost on day one and throughout your entire career. So what you're doing is setting the tone for every generation of engineers to follow. And we're going to learn a lot of lessons, right? There's going to be a lot. It's very exciting. As you kind of look forward to the next, your career progression, and you consider how AI plays that role, what are you doing to help empower the generation coming behind you on how to best leverage this? Are you jotting down notes, or what does that look like?
Or you rely on AI doing that for
That's
you?
right.
I don't think you even have to. I mean, the generation, below me is going to come up with this through college, through schooling. Like they're gonna be the masters at it, right? So, I mean, I would just encourage them to use it now. You know how to prompt it, understand it, and kind of ride the wave of AI.
And Kelsey, I know we're running out of time. They hit me with the note. I'd love to hear a little bit around how you're considering, Suffolk's competitive advantage, leveraging these tools, the Boost program, all that provides, and kind of how you're looking at this.
Yeah, I think it really sets us apart in the market. I think clients are, they're not happy with the status quo and the way that projects are being delivered today. And I think they're looking for contractors that can deliver more value, have more efficient staffing models, can, manage their subcontractors better. 80% of jobs in our segment that our size are delivered not on time and not on budget. And I think that's just not acceptable. So I think we're looking forward to seeing some of the efficiencies that AI can bring to the space. And hopefully that can help us deliver better projects that are on time and on budget for clients.
And safe. I know that's a big one for Suffolk.
And safe.
Awesome.
Of course, that's baseline.
That's right. Any last minute remarks? And then I think we got 1 or 2 minutes for questions.
No, booth is out there if you want to play around with it, but let's take some questions.
Yeah, we got some incredible socks, stickers. Come see us.
Henning.
So I've been thinking about this for a while, Sarah, because you challenged me. Which direction do you think you want to see? And this is for the Suffolk team, actually, more than for Sarah. Do you want to see this grow more into the field staff? So like getting to superintendents, foremen, maybe even craft workers, or do you see more pull from the back office folks like pre-con and risk and, corporate safety, that stuff?
I think it depends on how you look at it. Pre-con is an interesting area to focus on because that's where the cake is baked, and most of your risk is determined before you actually even sign a contract or execute in GMP. And so that's a big focus area for Suffolk in a lot of ways. I think in the execution phase, you're taking what you've committed to, and sort of the table's been set. But I think if you're willing to evolve your business model as a general contractor and take on different scopes, meaning move into the self-perform space, and are willing to take on more risk, then I think there's more opportunities there. So I think it depends on what your appetite is for expansion and integration as a general contractor. At least when I think about it from the Suffolk perspective.
I come from the field. I love the field. I'm pushing for the field. It's also, I think there's a lot that you can do in the back office space that is easy to do from an AI perspective because it's text, it's tables. Like we've spent tens of millions of dollars developing AI that can read and understand drawings. Like it's really hard. If anybody tells you they raised $2 million and they did it, they are lying. Like it's just physically not possible. And so why did we go down that path? Because ultimately that's the source of truth for most in construction, right? And so like, as always, I think more about like what has the biggest impact. That's why we went after drawings because it's really important. And then again, if I think about construction, pre-construction has a big impact. I agree, that's where it's baked. But the field is where you lose your job, right? Because that's where where mess ups are happening and redoing stuff and everything like that. So a little bit of both, I think. A little bit of the white collar stuff because it is companies like it, and field because we like it.
I agree. And I think that's all the time we have in the way of questions. Thank you all. Thank you guys as the panelists. I'm from Atlanta. It's incredibly humbling to see just, this kind of event take place here and for Atlanta to be a spot for AI and innovation. So I thank you all for coming all the way out to my hometown. And thank you guys for the work that you're doing and driving the change in the field.